This is, for me, a great occasion, and I say that because this is this is a critical time, and especially for those who are graduating. And I don't know the grade levels yet of who's graduating, but each step that you take is of course, it's a process to get to something better. I think back to when I was growing up in the state of Mississippi. I was fortunate, for those of you who don't know who I am, I was fortunate to play 9 years in the NBA. I played with the Denver Nuggets for 6 years, Sacramento Kings for 2 years, and the Grizzlies before they moved to Memphis for 1 year. And prior to becoming an NBA basketball player, I almost didn't make it. And I'm going to tell you why. I grew up in the state of Mississippi, and I grew up in the ghettos of Mississippi, and I didn't have a father. And to this day, I don't know who my father is. The only thing I was told by my mother before she passed was he was a white guy. I don't have a name or anything. And as a young man, that kind of bothered me for a minute. But also, I grew up in a family where education wasn't really pushed in a practical sense. My mother had an 8th grade education. And so, educationally, academically, I suffered as a result of that, because it's hard for your parents to give you something that you don't have, that she don't have. So even though she wanted us to get an education in a practical sense, being in the house where you read a lot, where you discussed issues, where you dealt with critical thinking, trying to develop critical thinking skills, problem solving, that didn't happen. And so as a result of that, as a young man, you lose confidence in your ability, in your academic ability. And so I was blessed by Allah to be able to find it in basketball. So I spent most of my time just playing basketball. And for me, I felt that was the only way out for me. I didn't see myself having a future in academics. Even though it's constantly pushed, to go to school, get a diploma, get a degree. That wasn't practical to me. And not only that, going through that process of having a mother with that limited education, not being in an environment where you're getting it every day, I found out later when I was in the 11th grade, and so from elementary all the way up to the 11th grade, I found out I had Rett Syndrom. How many of you have ever heard of Rett Syndrom? Yes. For those who haven't heard of it, it's a neurological disorder. And it involves muscle and vocal tics. And it's like your mind and your body on two different wavelengths. So everything has to feel perfect before you move forward. And I use this example a lot. This is a small example. For example, if I hit this podium, and I hit it, and that hurt. But if it doesn't feel right, if my mind and body are not on the same page, and it doesn't come off my knuckles the way I want it, I have to keep hitting it until it feels perfect. And that may take a while until I can go forward and do something else. Well, the same thing happens in school. So if I'm reading something and it doesn't roll off my lips correctly, I have to go back and read it again. If I read it, even if it's silent, and if it doesn't roll off my mind correctly, I have to go back and read it again. So say I finally read it, it goes off my lips, it goes off my mind, but now I don't comprehend it. I got to do it again. So just to read a page sometimes, or 2 pages, it take me 20 minutes. And so while being in school, if people don't understand that and they can't see what's going on, and at the same time, as a young man, you got too much pride. You don't want people to know. You tend to be labeled. And I can remember my mother being called by a teacher to come to the office. And the teacher, I didn't know this, but I'm sitting in the office, and the teacher is saying to her, "Miss Jackson, your son has been struggling in school, and we want to insist that you put him in a special class." I was devastated. You know, not that there's anything wrong with special classes, because there are people that need those classes, but I didn't think I needed it. I just knew that I needed more time. Not that I couldn't get the material, it's because it was hard for me to focus because I had Rett Syndrome. And so having to, things having to feel perfect for me. And so no one ever asked, but you're this young child in school, and you have this disorder that you don't know anything about all of these years until you get to the 11th grade and you're finally diagnosed, and now there's a name attached to it. They don't see that here's this little boy in class, and not that he can't get it, but he's too busy trying to stay still because he doesn't want to be humiliated and ridiculed. So as he's trying to stay still, he can't really focus on what the teacher is saying. And so you can't possibly learn in that way. So I go through that process all throughout my academic career, even getting to the point where I go to LSU. So I go to LSU, Louisiana State University, and here it is, you have this athlete who in public, he looks like this strong figure, confident. And of course, in basketball, I was confident. That's what I did most of my work with, and I developed the skill level by the grace and mercy of Allah. But internally, I was very insecure. I viewed myself as being inadequate. I looked at myself as feeling inferior because I didn't have that growing up, that education of knowing myself, developing those strengths. This is why when I look at you now, this is very critical, a time in your life, and really to take advantage of it. Now that I'm older, I'm at 48 years old, and I'm out of school, I'm learning more now than I've ever learned in school. I have a love for learning, I have a love for information, but I remember going through being assessed at Louisiana State University. And when I got in there, I had to read. They sent me through these assessment tests. And they ended up putting me, and a lot of people don't know this, you're some of the few, but this basketball player that broke all of these records at LSU and did all of these wonderful things by the grace and mercy of Allah, they had to put in a remedial reading class. I had classes that, because my comprehension level wasn't great, I could read. Even at a young age, I could spell and I could read, but I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't contextualize things. And so, even though I spent 9 years in the NBA and 7 years overseas, there's no way in the world that I can go back in time and make up for the moments, the lack of education that I lost. I can't go back. Coach once told me, my high school coach, when I was training, because I trained very hard in basketball, I trained like my life depended on it. Because if I didn't make it in basketball, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And that's hard as a child when you think about it. Wow, you putting all your marbles in one basket. And coach my high school coach told me once, he said, if you waste 1 second in life, you can't go back and make up for it. You can't go get it, because that second is gone. So I say that because now, all of those years that I lost, those opportunities that I wasted, right, that were missed, even though now I got a love for it, I want to read almost anything you put in my hand. I want to know it. I'm curious. Because there's power in information. I'm nowhere near where I could be if I took advantage of those opportunities and I had someone to take me under their wing and really educate me and instill in me the confidence, instill in me the importance of academics, the importance of being educated. And so I think this moment, I don't think, this is an important time for all of you to take advantage. There's a saying, I don't know who they equated to, I think they equated to Albert Einstein or something. They say if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll grow up the rest of its life thinking it's stupid. Because we all learn differently. I'm one of those people, I'm hands-on. I like to ask questions when I have them. And sometimes the structure that you're in, classrooms that you're in nowadays, can accommodate for that. Big classrooms, one teacher. You don't want to take away from other people learning. But that was me. growing up, being judged by somebody else's standards, and I know now that we all learn differently. So I hope that you'll value this moment that you have, and really, your parents also, the money that they spend, the time that they spend with you, supporting you. Really thank them for that. And if you can right now, please give your parents and all of those who are involved a round of applause. I don't know the time I have, but let me just say also that I was blessed by Allah. I grew up as in the Christian faith. I grew up as a Baptist. And we know in the Quran Allah says Iqra, right? He says read and analyze and ponder. And for me, all of those things, being educated, alhamdulillah, all of those things, going through, being educated, thinking about a life, because I know a lot of us want to be successful in something, right? Maybe an engineer, a doctor, maybe even an athlete, a basketball player. I didn't know at the time that being an NBA basketball player, I was taking the hard way. Because statistically, I didn't know that it was easier for me to become an engineer or a doctor as opposed to be a basketball player. At that time, it was like 1 in almost a million that would make it in the NBA. Now it's even more, because when you look at overseas market, people coming and going, it's probably even that much more in terms of the ratio that people can make it. I had a better chance of becoming an engineer, a doctor, but here it is, I wanted to become a basketball player. But Allah blessed me to get through that and survive it. But even now at 48, there's so much that I don't know. So many mistakes that I made because I didn't have that teaching at an early age. And I don't want you to go through that. And I know you probably hear from your parents too all the time. And my struggles, my challenges may not be your challenges. And we all have, Allah tests us differently. But there's one thing for sure, we're going to be tested. So take advantage of these moments right now. I have a child. I have 5 children. And one of them's 18 right now. And there's a tendency, there's a saying, a Sorrow tribe says that knowledge is a rumor until it's lived in the muscles. Right? It's only a theory until it's confirmed through experience. And I don't know how many times I have to tell my son. So one day I said to him, I said, son, is most everything I tell you, does it end up being right? And of course, we're not Allah. I said, does it end up, and I know parents, you can probably relate, because from here all the way up, you've watched them grow. You've seen the mannerisms, right? You kind of can tell, okay, they're getting ready to get in trouble. I see it. So I tell my son, he keep messing up. I said, son, let me talk to you. I said, does most everything I tell you end up being right? He says, yes. I said, if you had to invest your money with a banker, most every time you invested, he got it right. But there's a possibility he can get it wrong. Would you keep investing? What would the answer be? Let me say it again. If you're investing with a banker, and mostly every time you invest with that banker, he gets it right, but there's a possibility he might get it wrong, would you keep investing? I say to my son, if you're investing, and there's and mostly every time he gets it wrong, but there's a possibility he can get it right, would you invest with him? Would you invest with him? No. So I say to my son, you just said mostly everything I tell you ends up being right. So why don't you just invest in what I tell you? And quit all the questions, just do it. Just take a chance. Right? But unfortunately, that's not the way it's going to be. Y'all heard this message and you just agreed that you wouldn't do that. When you walk out before a week is over, most of you are going to do the opposite. And that's just the way it is. But I'm hoping and praying that you won't end up doing that. And you'll learn before it's too late, because there's a cycle that goes with it. And so, inshallah, really take advantage. And I know we all want to be successful, and that's beautiful. But there's no success in life. And again, I grew up in a Baptist home. And the best thing that has ever happened to me as a human being. I'm not saying this because it sounds good. I don't mince my words. You know, I say what I mean, whether people like it or not. The best thing that has ever happened to me, when I was in the NBA and I first arrived and they were paying me those big checks, I was miserable. I was unhappy because I wasn't at peace. When I became a Muslim, that's the best thing that has ever happened to me. Being able to embrace and Allah to invite me into this Islam. And so you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the fame, all the materialism, and the labels. If you don't have an acknowledgement of Allah, and you don't have peace with yourself in that relationship with Allah, as far as I'm concerned, you're not successful. So let's make sure that, inshallah, that's a part of the goal as well, along with the education. Thank you very much.